Welcome to Discovering. Accurate information about the movements of deer will play a vital role in the control of CWD and deer management in general. We'll tag along on a GPS collaring project in Dickinson County.
That GPS will connect to the satellite network where we're able to access the GPS data and look at the deer movements in live time.
And Kristen was in Chassell for the annual ice fishing tournament.
What did you catch them on?
Tip-ups.
Stick around, that's all tonight right here on Discovering.
The secret streams that flow beneath the cliffs of colored stone. Forests thick and healthy with birch and pine and oak. Surrounded by the greatest lakes this world has ever known. The black bear's awesome presence as he roams the hills and fields. Call of the timber wolf, the loon's lonesome trill, the eagle soaring high above, the trout lies deep and still. These are what I treasure, the only way I measure feelings that I have for this fine land. There is so much to discover when you're a long-time lover of northern Michigan.
At a recent UPSA meeting, I talked with DNR Supervisor Terry Minzy about deer. First, a quick look at this past deer season.
So we've got some preliminary numbers back on the 2018 deer season. And pretty much what it shows is that we were very similar to the 2017 season. It looks like our hunter success rates were up a little bit, but it also looks like we may have had a few less hunters on the landscape. We did have a strong 2.5 and 3.5-year-old age class in the harvest, and a surprisingly low number of year-and-a-half-old bucks. We suspect that the reduction in year-and-a-half-old bucks was as a result of a number of factors. One is that there were a good number of 2.5 and 3.5-year-olds out there, so folks were allowing those younger bucks to pass. But the other thing that folks will remember is in April of 2018, we had a lot of snow on the ground, and that probably reduced the antler development in the bucks that were on the landscape. So a number of our year-and-a-half-old bucks were likely sublegal antlers. And then we also figure that we had some reduction. We think that we had some mortality in that age class. So moving on into the 2019 deer season, it's kind of a guess at this point. We don't know exactly what we have for year-and-a-half-old bucks on the landscape. We may have had some that survived because of that smaller antler development, and then we have some that just perished and won't be there. So a lot's going to depend on how we come out of this winter, what the 2019 deer season is going to look like.
And we talked a bit about CWD.
We've tested over 2,000 deer in the Upper Peninsula. To date, we've still only found the one sick animal. While that's good news, we need to not get complacent on this because the chances are really small that we got the only animal that was sick. So we're going to continue working at this. We'll be doing some internal review to see how we can be more efficient and more effective with our testing as we move into the future.
Most of you know that we had put GPS collars out in 4 different deer winter complexes in the western UP.
We are doing GPS collaring right now down in that area. We're putting out 30 GPS collars, and we're going to learn how those deer move across the landscape so that we can do a better job of figuring out how and where to manage for this disease as we move through this process.
So in this trap, it looks like we have either a yearling doe or a yearling buck that we're going to pull out and collar.
I tagged along with DNR staff and research scientist Tyler Petrulia with State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry on a deer catching and collaring project in Dickinson County.
So the UP Deer Movement Study is a project that's a partnership between the Michigan Department of Natural Resources and the State University of New York College of Environmental Science and Forestry. And what the main focus is we're looking at deer movements and risk of deer coming in from Wisconsin or crossing from Wisconsin into Michigan and Michigan back into Wisconsin through summer and winter migrations. Then we're also interested in looking at movements of deer from dispersal events, whether that's buck fawns or doe fawns. And we're also looking at exploratory movements, whether that's bucks during breeding season or does doing late season movements outside of their home ranges. So on this project, we started last year and we initially collared 190 deer. And this year we're trying to supplement some of the mortality loss that we had through winter of last year and through fall harvest of last year. So this year in each of the study areas we're trying to collar approximately 20 deer in Little Girls Point, Lake Gogebic, and West Iron County, as well as about 10 deer up in the Kenton area around the West Branch Deer Wintering Complex. And then also now here in the Dickinson County new CWD core zone, we're trying to collar about 30 deer. And so right now we're looking at trying to get about 10 buck fawns, 5 adult bucks, and 7 doe fawns, and about 7 adult does.
Yep, we're ready.
There you go, nice job.
So we're trapping in Dickinson County within 5-mile radius of the index site, or where that first positive doe was detected. And as this project kicked off, focusing on the trapping and collaring of animals within deer winter complexes, we also knew that if a positive deer or positive chronic wasting disease deer popped up in the UP region, that there would be an effort to go into that area and collar some animals. And if we take a look at the core surveillance area that was set up, as well as that expanded surveillance area for the UP region related to that positive deer, you'll see that it looks much different than any of the surveillance areas in the Lower Peninsula. And that's because we know that deer in the UP behave and move differently than they do in a lot of other parts of the state. So those core and expanded ranges were set up with previous deer movement data, going back to some historical research projects where we did learn a lot about deer movement in relation to deer winter complexes, but also dispersal of adult bucks and buck fawns. So we're trapping in Dickinson County area so we can have a stronger understanding of how the deer within proximity of that positive are moving, both seasonally and then also just those dispersal distances.
And we've had some movements of deer from West Iron County going almost all the way up to Lake Superior, deer from Lake Gogebic going up to White Pine and back between their summer and winter migrations. And then quite a few deer that we've had cross across the Michigan and Wisconsin border from West Iron County, as well as Little Girls Point Deer Wintering Complex. So in Little Girls Point, these movements are from the 4th of January in 2018 to about the end of December in 2018. And you can see in the dark purple we have adult females, in the pink we have the doe fawns, bright blue we have adult bucks, and in the teal we have the buck fawns. And so you can see between the summer and winter movements, they move from the Little Girls Point Wintering Complex. A lot of them moved to the outskirts of Ironwood and Bessemer. We had some adult does that moved almost to the west shore of Lake Gogebic, and then several does that moved across the Michigan-Wisconsin border. One went south of Saxon and back between winter and summer. This is the northern section of the Lake Gogebic Deer Wintering Complex, where we collared deer on the east shore of Lake Gogebic, and all of these deer actually migrated north during the summer and crossed to the north side of 28, with some adult female does going up as far as White Pine. Some of the associated bucks and buck fawns that were collared over in Kenton Wintering Complex actually migrate to the same summer range as some of the deer that were collared in the Lake Ogeebic Wintering Complex. And in the West Iron County Deer Wintering Complex, you can see that the movements in some areas were very small, where some of these deer are residents, kind of as we expected. As that snowfall decreases, you see more deer that don't have to migrate during winter conditions. What we do see is buck fawn dispersal, and that becomes more evident where we had buck fawns dispersing from their natal range, and we have that happening in a few different places. We also had some interesting adult doe migrations where we had 2 adult does that migrated to home range in the south in Wisconsin, where one moved 4 miles across the border and another doe moved 14 miles south across the border into Wisconsin. But yeah, each winter they come back up and yard up in the West Iron County Wintering Complex. This is the South Lake Ogeebic Wintering Complex. In addition to collaring deer on the east shore of Lake Ogeebic, we went down around Langford and Cisco Lakes and looked at if those deer mix at all with the deer in the northern part of the wintering complex. And what we found is most of those deer are resident. What we did see is that you do get large dispersal movements from these buck fawns, some moving across into Wisconsin and some moving north away from their natal range as well. And what we also did see is that we had a lot of adult male movement during breeding season. So once the rut was on, we saw that these adult males would move away from their summer and winter range to go to some of these other areas in the complexes to breed other does. So this is a recap. We're just gonna let this deer go. So we caught a fawn and we're gonna pull it out to see if it's a male or female fawn. First we're gonna move it into the handling crate so that we can weigh it and then pull it out to determine the sex. But in Dickinson County, we're trying to collar about 30 deer, with about 10 of those being buck fawns, 5 adult bucks, then about 7 doe fawns and 7 adult does. So when we first get to a trap and see that the doors are down, what we'll do is we'll go see what we've actually caught. We'll see if it's an adult or fawn, and then we try to identify if it's a male or female as well. And if it's a deer that we need to collar, then we'll bring out the capture box, or the squeeze box as we call it, and put that up against the side of the box and try to encourage the deer to get inside that box. Once we get it in there, we're able to weigh the deer. And then when we have weighed the deer, we can actually pull the deer out of the box.
Got him.
And we have 2 people grab a hind leg. One person will grab the front legs, and then another person will grab the head. And finally, another person will pull the box away and use the piggin string to bind the back legs together, while one of the people can then hobble the back legs, hobble the front legs, and then we'll hobble the front and back legs together so that the deer is restrained. So once the deer is restrained, then we're able to get some morphometric measurements, such as right hind foot measurement, chest girth, and then we also measure the neck circumference at the base of the neck and right behind the skull, and that gives us a better idea for collar fit and to identify and compare deer between different study areas across the West UP. We also take body condition scores, so we can look at the deer's body condition as winter progresses, and again compare that between study areas and then between years as well to see what kind of condition that these deer are in. We'll give them a shot of antibiotic, and that helps with any of the capture process, any of the stress they may receive during the capture process. We also take a hair sample, and we give ear tags, so 1 tag in each ear with an individual identifier. And then finally, if we're going to collar it, then we'll put a collar on, and depending on the sex or the age of the animal, we'll put on a specific collar for that deer. There she goes. Nice.
All right, so these are Stevenson box traps that we're using to capture the deer. Pretty simple setup. They're kind of heavy to move. Usually they typically take 4 to 5 people to get them to move. We've got doors on both ends. One of the ends has a wire mesh on it because we don't want the deer going this end, yet we want the deer to be able to see through so they feel a little bit more comfortable to go into it. So that we want them to go on the other end. They've got drop doors on both ends on pulley systems and a string on the outside. So this is our trigger system on it. It's a pretty simple design where it just hooks underneath with a trip wire on the inside. So the side doors on it is for what we call as a squeeze box. When we get a deer inside, we'll check through the look hole here or through under the door here to kind of determine before we start them on the sex and age of the deer we have. And then we'll push a squeeze box up to this, and it has a little door on the end that will open up so that light can see through, and we'll pull this door off in the end of the door on the squeeze box. And the deer will see that light and it'll tend to go in there. Some are a little bit difficult. They don't want to go in there, but for the most part, they've been pretty good. So on the inside here, this is our main trip wire going across to that trigger on the outside. Here we also run fishing line up and down. We'll either run it this way or kind of in a W pattern. That way when a deer comes in here, it can either hook this with its feet, or when it gets its head in here, it might hook some of this fishing line. Just makes it a little bit easier and a little bit quicker to catch them. We do use a little bit of alfalfa and just a little bit of corn to get them in here. There's no other way for us to get them in here to set off this trigger. So they'll come in because they can see through. They'll come in and they'll start pawing at some of the alfalfa and the corn, and they'll set this tripwire off. And when they pull that, it activates the trigger on the outside, and both doors will fall.
So we know a lot about deer movement in the UP region because it has been studied previously. Something a lot different about this particular project is the technology that is in the collars that we put on the deer.
So these GPS collars have a battery life that lasts 3 to 5 years, and they'll take a location every 13 hours. And it has an internal antenna for the GPS, and that GPS will connect to the satellite network and take a location. And then once a day, it will connect to that satellite network and send those 2 locations back to us via a web service where we're able to access the GPS data and look at the deer movements in live time. And then it also has a VHF antenna, and that way we can track the animal on the ground, and we can monitor if it has a live signal or a mortality signal from that VHF signal as well.
And so we're able to have a lot more information about these day-to-day movements as well as seasonal movements, and of course those long-range dispersal movements. And again, that's all going to strengthen our ability to make management decisions as it relates to disease. It'll also inform our regular deer management decisions as well.
Actually, he ran off really well.
It's important more than ever to encourage kids to get outdoors, hunting, fishing, or just being active and getting some fresh air. The Chassell VFW Auxiliary does a great job getting kids excited about ice fishing.
We are at the Chassell VFW for our annual ice fishing tournament. We have kids come in, they fish for free. Adults are $15 entry. Walleye, pike, crappie, and perch categories for adults. Kids is largest fish, legal fish.
143 adults and 62 kids signed up for this year's tournament.
They can fish from 7 in the morning till adults are done at 7 at night, have fish back. Kids are done at 1 o'clock, and then we'll have food and prizes for the kids at 1 o'clock.
I trekked across the Chassell Bay of Portage Lake to see how many fish the kids were catching.
Trying to catch like pike, and we're trying to catch my mom wants us to catch a salmon.
At my first stop, I found the Benson family. 7-year-old Jasmine, her cousin Hunter, her sister Olivia, and Olivia's friend Riley were waiting for their first fish to bite.
This little girl got 3rd place last year, actually.
Won a trophy.
And it was her first time ever out here, so it was really, really fun experience. We'll keep doing it until they're done with it. I don't think that's going to happen, though.
I stuck around for a little while, hoping to be good luck, but I wasn't.
Yep, we gotta put that up there.
The next group of ice shacks had a family running to a tip-up, so I was hoping to see a big fish there. Sure enough, 13-year-old Reese White from Calumet had just pulled a northern pike out of the ice.
Oh yeah, he's legal.
25 3/4.
What is that?
25 3/4. I'm mainly doing the flags tip-ups today, but I've been running the jigs a couple times.
That was a fun time, even if we don't catch anything.
It was great to see families out fishing together.
Yeah, we got my parents here, my little brother there, and then these are both of ours. So we have, I think, 6 or 7 kids. Hard to keep track of them all.
On my way off the ice, I caught back up with the Benson family as they were packing up, and Jasmine was all smiles.
It is 32 inches.
Is this the biggest fish you've ever caught?
Yeah, bigger than last year.
What did you catch them on?
Tip-ups.
With a shiner?
With the shiner.
Oh, good. Is Dad pretty proud?
Yeah.
Oh, very.
I followed them back to the VFW for the weigh-in, lunch, and awards. 12 fish weighed in for the largest and the smallest prize. Miles Roy caught the smallest fish, a perch weighing in at 0.05 pounds. Reese White took third place. Lars Anderson caught the second largest fish, a 5.06 pound northern pike. And first place was Jasmine's pike, which weighed in at 7.45 pounds. Every kid left with an armload of stuff: restaurant coupons, shirts, hats, and door prizes.
We couldn't do it without the community. We have lots of sponsors from all of Keweenaw and Houghton counties. They're helping us out, donations of door prizes, cash.
The day was all about fishing and fun. Seeing the smiles on all the kids' faces meant it was a successful event.
Be in Rapid River on March 15th and 16th for the Gun and Knife Show at the American Legion. 3 to 7 on Friday and 9 to 4 on Saturday. It's $5 to get in, and children under 12 are free. Buy, sell, and trade. For information, contact Jerry at 420-0827. Brought to you by the Walter Cole American Legion, Ducks Unlimited, and Delta County Gun Owners Association. That's it for tonight. We'll see you next week right here on Discovering.